Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Sajida Naseem, Associate Professor in the Department of Community Medicine at Shifa College of Medicine, Islamabad. I welcome you all to this webinar today, which is being conducted on the topic of promoting research culture in medical education, need of the day. Thank you, all of you, for taking out your time and coming here and joining us for this seminar. Before we begin with the proceedings of this seminar, I would request our Professor Dr. Mohammed Amir, who is the Principal and Dean of Clinical Health Sciences at Shifa College of Medicine, Shifa Tameer, Millat University. Sir, I request you to recite few verses from Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فتعالى الله الملك الحق ولا تعجل بالقرآن من قبل أن يقضى إليك وحيه وقل رب زدني علما. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. So high is Allah, the sovereign, the truth. And O Muhammad, do not hasten with the recitation of the Holy Quran before its revelation is completed to you, and say, my Lord, increase me in my knowledge. Sadaqallahul Azim.
Jazakallah. Now I would like to welcome all our distinguished speakers and participants to this event of the seminar. Now, this topic of today's webinar is promoting research culture in medical education, need of the day. As we were discussing and we were actually finalizing the topic, we thought that probably the answer to this is already given in the topic, in the title, the need of the day. We all know that research is the basis of any clinical practice. And in order to do the evidence-based practice, we need to generate the evidence-based data. And evidence-based data, especially in the context of the local setting, is very important. That is why we thought that it is very, very relevant to talk about the teaching and training of research at the undergraduate level and link it with the postgraduate level. We all know we are in different colleges, it is taught differently, the students are trained differently in conducting, in carrying out the research. So we thought that Shifa College of Medicine, because we have actually introduced the longitudinal theme of research, whereby we are conducting research longitudinally, spirally, spreading all in the 5 years. So we thought, let's share our experience and benefit from the experience of our other speakers, both at the national as well as the international level. So this was the reason why we chose this topic for today's webinar. We are very grateful to our worthy keynote speakers, which include a very brief introduction I'm just going to give, because most of us, they have been very humble, and most of them have requested that a very short intro should be provided. We have the keynote speakers, which include Professor Dr. Samin Siddiqui, then Major General Professor Dr. Amir Ikram, Professor Dr. Syed Noman Bazni, Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem, and among the panelists we have Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal, Professor Dr. Mohammed Amir, then Professor Dr. Atef Rahman, and Dr. Farooq Azam Rathore. As we will go about with their presentations, we will come to know that they all have diverse experience. It is not the experience that is limited only to the medical education at the undergraduate level. It extends far beyond this to its application at the level of the post-graduation level, in the clinical practice, as well as at the community level. So we will be talking about how is the research linked at that level, where the public health practices can be modified by conducting research and incorporating the evidence-based data there. So thank you very much, our speakers, our worthy participants, our faculty, our students, all our IT personnel, as well as the human resource officers and all those who have helped us to conduct this webinar today on a holiday, especially on a weekend. The objectives of this webinar are actually to outline the learning and training of research methodology at local and international level, highlight the challenges faced and way out, discuss the way forward in the teaching and training of research methodology, and outline the strategies to integrate research in medical curriculum. So these are the objectives of today's webinar. So now we will first begin with our first keynote speaker, and he is Professor Dr. Samin Siddiqui. He is a very famous personality, and we all are very familiar with him. And we were, the moment we announced actually your presence in this webinar, most of us, everybody thought that, that they really wanted to listen to you, sir. So thank you for joining us. He is currently the Chair, Department of Community Health Sciences at Aga Khan University, Karachi, Pakistan. He holds a doctoral degree in public health from Heidelberg, Germany. He has held numerous academic positions in the WHO Eastern Mediterranean region, as well as in the World Bank and representing Pakistan. All our, just to actually sum up all our speakers today, they are actually they are in the editorial board of one or more of the index journals. So without this, without giving a further, more elaborate intro of these personalities, I would request now Professor Dr. Samin Siddiqui to actually present his, to make his presentation. And he will actually be talking about the research activities at Aga Khan University and linking it with the public health. Over to Dr. Samin Siddiqui. Sir.
Seminar. So you can hear me now? Can you hear me? Yeah. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure. And I want to thank the organizers, Dr. Sajida, Dr. Zahid, for organizing this and for inviting me to give this talk. I know there's not a lot of time, so I will really stick to the time as much as possible, and I will move on. So I'll be talking about the research capacity and culture in health, particularly from a public health perspective, and I will share the experience from the Aga Khan University, which I joined about 3 years ago. So, oh, my slides seem to be stuck here. Oh God. Okay, can you see this now? I have a problem here.
Yes,
okay, I'll try
now we can.
Can you see my slides?
Yes.
But it's not moving somehow. Oh God.
Can you display?
New share.
Can we display on our side?
Okay, let me see if I can just move the slide like this. Okay. So this is the burden of disease of Pakistan, and you can see that Pakistan's big burden is now with non-communicable diseases, particularly with NCDs, but neonatal disorders still are quite high. Ischemic heart disease is very high. Road injuries, stroke, and NCDs have really gone up in the last 10 years. So this is the burden of disease that we see for Pakistan in the last 10 years. Now, this is the key risk factors that lead to the burden of disease and are responsible for death and disability in Pakistan. And these are by and large, malnutrition, dietary risks, high blood pressure, tobacco, air pollution, and so on. These are the top 10 risks as done by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, and this is the kind of the burden of disease. So this is what Pakistan is facing, and I think as researchers, both in medical education and public health, we need to be quite aware of these challenges. Now, I have to say, before I get to the AKU part, we have had in the past a national health strategy and a health research strategy and priorities. But for the last many, many years, I have not seen an emphasis on research strategy for the country. The last that I recall was almost about 20 years ago. And I think it's important that we move in that direction to have a clear research strategy around which our institutions then engage in the relevant research. Of course, institutional research is based on the health needs, our own research expertise, funders' priorities, research interests of the researcher, and of course, collaboration sometimes with international bodies and so on and so forth. So with that said, let me quickly give you an overview of the research with the focus of the medical college that is in Pakistan. So AKU has several entities across, I think many countries, in Pakistan, in East Africa, in UK, in Afghanistan, but my focus will be the research work that is being done in Pakistan, particularly by the medical college, which is the subject of the discussion today. So I'll be focusing on the medical college and its research work primarily. Aga Khan University is fortunate and it is ranked among the top 100 universities for clinical medicine in the world. And it's quite well known that its graduates, are, recognized all over the world for the quality of the training that they receive at the Aga Khan University. Now, from a research perspective, the research in Aga Khan spans many disciplines. Particularly, it emphasizes the problems of Pakistan and the developing world. And it encompasses both community-based research, which is certainly coming out of my Department of Community Health Sciences, but other departments as well, hospital-based research, but also it engages quite actively in basic and translational research. In terms of the research initiatives, it has a very well-established research facilitation office. It has currently it has 35 different research groups, and it has just streamlined its ethical review processes, which are quite important when we embark on any research program. So you may not be able to see this, but these are the 35 research groups, such as on antimicrobial resistance or child protection or critical care or on head and neck cancers. And they're quite active in different research activities. And these groups meet quite frequently across departments, and I think form the backbone or the basis of research at the Aga Khan University. Now, the research, you see, before you embark on research, it's quite important that what is the research infrastructure of that institution. So we also have some capacity for basic research. So we have what is called the Juma Research Lab with the biosafety level 2 and 3 facilities. We have around 36 benches, particularly for basic research. We have a very good grants management infrastructure, which I think in any international research arena, it's critical to have that sort of an infrastructure. We have a very, very active ethical review committee. Again, we have an animal house. And I'll talk about something which we call intramural research funding, which I think is a very good incentive for young researchers. Now, in terms of research capacity and expertise, and I'm focusing more on public health, of course, we need to have people and researchers with specific interests, whether it is maternal child health or NCD or environmental health or health systems or clinical research. So that is to start with. I think an area which is very important, and I would like to emphasize this, is expertise and experience in grant writing research proposals. And what I felt, having worked in WHO internationally for many years, this in our part of the world is a weak area and I think needs to be strengthened. And I think that's quite an important area. We, of course, then need expertise in research methods like quantitative or qualitative or mixed research methods, their design, their analysis. And now with information technology, it's a big issue to deal with big data sets. And we need that data management capacity and data science capacity, especially as artificial intelligence and machine learning kicks in. I think that's become another big area for all of us to be able to, get and have an understanding and then have a command on this area. At Aga Khan, of course, we are fortunate that we have field sites, we have urban sites, we have a rural field sites that I've established recently, and we also have multiple health registries. For instance, we have a cancer registry, or we have a brain tumor registries, and so on and so forth. And then you need some expertise in manuscript writing, and of course, when you publish, you would also like to disseminate those publications, engage in dialogue, and so on and so forth. So in terms of Aga Khan, and I'll be very quick now, and just look at the first row, which is highlighted, which is Medical College Pakistan. On an average, the faculty at Aga Khan produces about 500 papers every year. Almost 80% of those papers are in the international journals, and the rest are in the local journals. It has been quite active in mobilizing research grants over the last few years, and obviously we have quite a big team and some very amazing researchers. And so on an average, we mobilize, some can be as good as about $10 million every year, which is substantial, but could improve as well. And then I think this is something which is important to encourage the young researcher, that we have what we call intramural grants, where we offer small grants for our young researchers to be able to come up with research proposals, undertake research, and use this as a basis for bigger research. So these are kind of seed grants, which is a real incentive for our motivated young researchers. So this is just a quick and run through of what the number of extramural grants that we're successful with. And so it is increasing. And so last year we have mobilized about 70 grants across all departments, and that runs in quite a few, as I mentioned, $1 million in partnership with many international universities. My last slide, and this is my last slide, is that what are the enabling factors for research as we push the research agenda in Pakistan? Clearly, there has to be a high level of commitment to research and evidence, particularly political commitment in terms of more resource allocations, and also the desire by policymakers and managers to use research and evidence. And I think those are quite important. At the moment, unfortunately, our research institutions are very, very short of resources, and so their funding capacity is very limited. A second thing is about partnership and collaboration. And I think it's extremely important in an area of globalization that we have good partnership with international institutions, in which sometimes we are partners and sometimes we lead with those institutions. But today, without those international partnerships, it's quite difficult to engage in high profile researches, and also international agencies would very much like to see these kinds of partnerships between what is called the North and the South. And the third, which I don't need to emphasize, is the capacity for research, whether it is proposal writing or grant proposals and so on and so forth. And finally, we need to be incentivizing research. So in Aga Khan, for instance, we have a clinical track and a research track, and there are some people who are basically engaged in a research track, and they get the credit and the recognition for basically doing primarily research work. And so their incentives could be both monetary, but also non-monetary incentives. And of course, they are supported in terms of greater participation in conferences and so on and so forth. So I think if we have to move forward in our institutions and in Pakistan in general, then I think we need to put research on high priority, put in more funds, and incentivize our researchers to take up research as a significant part of their professional development. I think I'm going to stop here. I was asked to speak for 10 minutes, and I hope I'll finish in those 10 minutes. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will hand it back to the organizer, Dr. Sajida and Dr. Zahid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Samin, for a very enlightening talk, especially very, very useful because lots of faculties attending it, and very important to understand the importance of grants and the linkages that needs to be established in order to increase the scope of research. So we have a few questions from the audience. And the first question is, in Aga Khan University, does the faculty has designated time
if you can speak a bit louder, please. I have a problem hearing you, so if you could just make it a bit louder.
Okay. My question from the audience is, in Aga Khan University, does faculty get a designated time to conduct research apart from other academic activities? So is there any kind of this?
Yes. So thank you for that. I think it's a very relevant question for any. So we have, as I said, tracks, and so we have a education research track. So in public health, we have an education, or we have a research education track. So in a research education track, the researcher is allowed up to 60% of the time to engage in research and 40% in education. On the other side, it's the other way around. But for the clinicians, we also have a clinician researcher track. And so we also have a clinician teacher track. So when clinicians are engaging in more research, they get more flexibility in putting their time for research. But that means that then they have to be productive. They have to then write grants. They have to then mobilize resources, publish, and so on and so forth. So there is a dedicated time, but then that time means then you need to show your results and your performance as a result of the flexibility that the system offers you. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Yes, very well elaborated, sir. Another question is, how can we all make a coordinated effort to increase collaboration between different institutions and universities in any research projects?
I think it's again a great question, and I would like to acknowledge and thank Shifa Medical College for taking this initiative. Because we need to, I think we're all working sometimes in silos, and there's a need for us to work together, particularly inside the country. So I have to say that many a times we have more international collaborations than we have national collaborations. So in my case, I do think that I do work a lot with our counterpart, which is the Health Services Academy in Islamabad in the public health arena. But I'm absolutely sure that my clinical colleagues and others will be very keen to work with you. So I just want to give you an example that my Dr. Athar Inam, the chair of surgery, is inaugurating a conference of neurosurgery this afternoon, and 14 institutions from across the country have applied and are participating in that. So I think if we take these initiatives, we can work together. And then on behalf of Aga Khan, I think we'll be delighted to collaborate with colleagues from across Pakistan.
Okay, thank you very much. And also one question from the student is, are students, because as we know in Aga Khan University also from the very beginning, concepts of research and research methodologies taught. So are students part of the clinical research also from the very beginning, or do they get the chance to do clinical research once they start doing the clinical rotations?
So for students, there are many opportunities for engaging in research while they're students at Aga Khan, both in the medical school, but even in the nursing school that we have. And so not only there are many training courses in research, but they become part of our research networks. And they then become part of the teams, and then they get authorship, they get full participation in this. And every year, I have to say that the students of Aga Khan University organize a research conference. Unfortunately, this year, due to the COVID-19, we could not do that, but students organize it, and of course, we facilitate it as faculty. So students are actively engaged, and some students are publishing quite regularly, even before they graduate in this regard.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for a very enlightening talk and answering our very questions that were very meant for students as well as for the faculty. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you very much
for joining us. Dr. Sameer Siddiqui, I think he has to leave now. So we will carry on with our program. Our next speaker is Major General Professor Dr. Aamir Ikram. Thank you, sir, for joining us. He's a microbiologist and he has done fellowship in microbiology, also holds a PhD degree. At present, he is the executive director at NIH Islamabad. And recently, we have been seeing him in in a very pivotal role in the corona pandemic, as we have seen the role of National Institute of Health Islamabad. He's President Pakistan Biological Safety Association, and he's also the focal point of expertise for medical research at the Higher Education Commission. He received the Biosafety Heroes Award from IFBA and was conferred Sitara Imtiaz Military. So thank you, sir, for joining us. Now over to Major General Professor Dr. Aamir Ikram for his enlightening talk regarding the role of NIH and in the research. Sir, kindly unmute कर लीजिएगा.
जी कर दिया मैंने. Thank you. So would you allow me to share the screen from here right now, or you're doing it?
Sir, kindly share it अगर आप कर सकते हैं, otherwise.
मैं कर सकता हूँ, लेकिन आपको उधर से disable किया हुआ है.
अच्छा, okay. Sir, we'll do it. Just a second.
सर कर सकते हैं आप.
सर अब आप कर सकते हैं.
जी. So Bismillah Rahman, thank you so much Sajida and everyone on board. Extremely grateful to Shifa International. It's a very comprehensive talk here, but I'll try to be brief with I think around 30 slides. If you see the Flexner report suggested that the scientific research should be an essential component in the medical curriculum, and that's what is going on, the virus of curiosity being inculcated in the students at all the levels, and that's been the hallmark abroad. We talk of health, we do talk of, we failed in achieving the MDGs, now we are moving toward the Sustainable Development Goals, and basically if you see the part 3, which talks about good health, and 4th, quality education, and all revolve around the medical research. We all understand we are a developing country, we have our international and national commitments. I think Naseem has already pointed out, as you can see, we are still facing burden of tuberculosis and so many other diseases, and then the emerging and re-emerging diseases are always a threat for have been a threat for our country. This has already been narrated by Samin. I mean, huge number of patients coming with the high blood pressure and heart diseases and so on. So with all that background, generally the medical research in our country is standard, I would say, is quite low. Mostly we revolve around the database studies, and which is simple statistics and nothing else. There's a lot of repetition, and the publication range about 2 to 521 per college per year. I would say that definitely there is inadequate training for the graduate level, and that's not only for the medical side but also for the nursing and paramedics as well. Very few incentives are there. It is just a mere requisite for promotion. And then we just have 4 in medical journals. The highest impact factor is 0.5 for the JCPSP. So I think we need to rethink on all these lines. Just a few facts that we mostly revolve around the descriptive studies, the grant and proposal writing inadequacy is already there. And mostly it is more to upgrade the CV. If we move on, there's a dearth of physician scientists, which is otherwise a global pattern, but much greater magnitude if we talk of our own country. The clinical research and trials, unfortunately, if you go to the FCR side, very few hundred over there which are authentic from Pakistan. We have very much fragmented activities. The concept of at least contract research organization did emerge sometime earlier, and we have now a few CROs within the country. If you see the clinical trial over here, the picture is quite grim. And this is $1 billion industry outside. If you see the funding analysis coming down to PHRC alone, if you see their fund, most of their fund, 95% of their fund are being utilized for administrative purposes and pay, and hardly some much. I did get a chance for 3 months leading this. We totally revised the policy, and let's hope that we make it much more comfortable for young doctors who are interested in research. And the good news is with the new legislation, PHRC would come down under National Institutes of Health, inshallah, shortly. At the student level, unfortunately, the culture and the mindset is not. I mean, if you have seen the example of Aga Khan, you just heard, I mean, most of the college, it is not like that. Options are very few for the students. You just talked about the mural funding. The learning opportunities are low. It's not part of the curriculum. If you see all the institutes involved, from starting from PHRC, CPSP, and all other, the opportunities are very, very few. If you see of top 10 universities, unfortunately, mostly from the non-medical side. Research education, hardly a few institutes which are imparting this formally to the postgrads even. And the potential market is definitely there. We have the available infrastructure, capable and competent doctors are available, pharmaceuticals are interested. And if you see the studies in the therapeutic areas, I think we have done a good number of studies in the cardiovascular side. And still amazing was the Pakistan ranks among top countries in putting research articles and papers for the life sciences field. So these are the things which we need to cash. And NIH can definitely provide a platform. As I said, PHRC coming down would be much more beneficial for the country. We are also in the process of establishing a biobank and a bioequivalence lab, and then accreditation from the international authorities. Not many activities I would not like to divulge, most of them starting from the public health, but now for the last 3 years, we have won a good number of international grants, and we would like, if Shifa, to join hands with us in so many research projects. And let me tell you, this was the first time that for Corona alone, we've already submitted 20 international papers, 6 have already been published. And for the first time, we did this whole genome sequencing for all the strains within Pakistan at NIH. So you've already heard we had a long policy which unfortunately has not been changed over the years. So what we need is basically the ongoing research and collaborations, as already pointed out by Dr. Samin. Recently, HEC launched a good initiative for COVID-19 related grants, but unfortunately, the young doctors probably not having much knowledge, they don't apply for it. I am co-chair for that as well. My humble request for young doctor, middle tier doctor, even for the senior doctor to please come on and apply for these grants, and it's an open field. And many discussions have been already conducted at the Planning Commission. And with all that, NIH has taken yet another lead in the country that we are conducting the first ever phase 3 clinical trial for corona vaccine with CanSino, China and Canada. So remedial measures have already been pointed out. I think incentivization is the main thing that we need to be concerned. And some of the strategic steps that enhance the research culture overall within the country. The way forward, as we move on, I have a propagated research policy from the government side, taking all the stakeholders into the loop. So I'd then just like to conclude that this is an area of high attention. We have the strengths, and I truly believe we have the challenge, but let's convert the challenges into opportunities. NIH would be coming forward to provide this platform, and let's join hands together to make this country again compatible as far as medical and clinical research is concerned to any international standard in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aamir, for a very, very composite talk. It was actually most of the questions you have already answered in your presentation that we had in our mind. But that you answered that obviously we can collaborate with medical colleges, can collaborate with NIH in reaching out to grants and carrying out research projects. Can we have our question from one of the audiences? Can we work to have a central body for collecting database for better data analysis and interpretation and dissemination of the data? So can NIH play some role in that?
Yeah, I would request Shifa team to just visit, inshallah, NIH. We have now set up our own emergency operating center with our own IT hub and the only public sector institute with its own cloud and servers. We have evolved an integrated disease surveillance and response system throughout the country, whereby we are getting the data from all parts of the country, not only COVID alone, but all other infectious diseases. Now, with the new legislation, we are establishing a CDC Pakistan as well. And with all that, the non-communicable diseases data would also be coming under the domain of NIH. So we have done a lot of hard work, and what we are using is DHIS2, which is a WHO compatible software. I would request Shifa I think we plan and bring your final year to see the actual standard, and that's the base why we have been able to fight and have a good surveillance of corona within the country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aamir. And in this connection, I would like to thank you also. We regularly take our students to NIH for visit, where we often meet you also, and where there are different cells of different programs that are going on and which are set up in that. So our fourth year students, when they are in the community and family medicine clerkship, they really benefit from that visit. And that's very good of you that you have offered the final year students also. So thank you very much for your offer. And there's another question. Is there a central accessible website for research related education in Pakistan?
No, unfortunately not. But once we get the mandate of PHRC under NIH, we have all the plans to centralize these things. Because if I would say a doctor level team, Saida, including you, if you come down, we have the teams which are trained in grant.
Yes.
I mean, they visualize the grants all over the globe. Then we have a team who's trained in grant writing as well. And that's been the success key for winning these grants. Unfortunately, there is none in Pakistan right now, but an international site for which you can become member is Grantscape, GRANTSCAP. If you become a member, you'll be having a clear visualization of grants available all over the world. But inshallah, shortly, once PHRC is under, we'll establish our own website accordingly.
Thank you very much, sir, for your offer and for sharing this very, very informative queries, answering to our queries. Thank you very much for your time. Major General Amir Ikram, he is very busy and he had to, I think, proceed, sir, for another meeting, as I understood previously. And he was in the morning also. So thank you very much for joining us and for giving us very thought-provoking ideas. And inshallah, under the guidance of our Vice Chancellor Saab and the Dean Professor Dr. Amir, together we will just plan a meeting and we will visit you soon. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Professor Syed Noman Bazmi Inam. He is a public health and a medical education specialist, and at present he is head of Department of Community and Community Medicine and Medical Education at the at Bahawalpur in the CMH Institute of Medical Sciences, Bahawalpur, since 2017. He has worked for 15 long years at the Qasim University Medical College in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's also on the editorial board of several index journals and reviewer of manuscripts for 6 index journals. Dr. Bazmi would reflect us and will actually share his experience, whereby he has worked in the Aga Khan University also, then proceeding to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he spent 15 long years, and now in the Bahawalpur, in the NUMS Medical College, CMH Institute of Medical Sciences. So sharing his experiences as a transition from all these different colleges, from international to local experience. So over to Professor Dr. Syed Noman Bazmi Inam, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope my slide is, you can see my slide, and can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's great.
Yes.
I'll be focusing more on the research in medical education, and in between I'll be, sliding in some of the experience which I've had. And it was very heartening to listen to Professor Samin, because I have a long collaboration with him from HSA and when I was in Pakistan and before he went to WHO and so on and so forth. Anyway, so it's certainly heartening to see the AQU progressing in this direction, and that stopwatch. And that I was among the pioneer faculty there, albeit in a junior position, and that the first coordinator for research there. So research flourishing in this manner, it is really very heartening to see that at least in one of the institutions it is there. So the current content of this session, which I'm going to do, is that I'm going to elaborate on the importance of teaching research methods in medical education, and what are the global trends, and what are the current status in Pakistan, what are the students' perception about research in developing countries, and what are the barriers to teaching research methods, and obviously what is the way out, and how to reinforce and develop research culture in medical education in Pakistan. And having said that, let's move on. And I believe that we do have students in the audience. Therefore, I am going to give a little more basic background as to what medical education is and as to what is going on globally. Now, if you look at the medical education, medical education is a process in continuum for 5 years. In some international medical school, it is 4 years of undergraduate. In Pakistan, we have got 5 years of undergraduate. Then we have We produce undifferentiated physicians with 1 year of house job or internship, as one may call it, and we produce undifferentiated physicians, which then go and branch out into different specialty with year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 residency, 4 years of residency program. Some have 5 years of residency program, and then a year of perhaps fellowship. And at both these endings in the residency, we have the specialized program, the boards exam or the fellowship program. And then after 1 year of fellowship, there's another exam for that super specialty. So you see that we have got, and all along this, self-directed lifelong learner is emphasized because the we are living in an era of evidence-based medicine, call it evidence-based practice or best evidence in practice, both in preventive, curative, and basic sciences. So we are living in this area, and it is not that today we are living in this area. We have been living in this area for the last 50 plus years. So it's more than half of the century that we are living in era of evidence-based medicine. And that medical education is expanding exponentially. And that is why the need of the students to be lifelong self-directed learners. And for them to be lifelong self-directed learners, it is important that they do understand the foundations of research methods. And if they do not understand that, then it will be difficult for them to comprehend the research, recent advances and the best evidence which is coming and as to what is behind that, and so on and so forth. And that the introduction of new technologies, new radiodiagnostic interventions, and then medical and surgical interventions make it all the more necessary that they have to become lifelong learners, and that to self-directed lifelong learners. And then it is not that research training experience is nice to have. No, it is imperative that they should have. So therefore, globally, they are recommending that, not only recommending, they are enforcing that the students, they go through hands-on training in research, both in the undergraduate medical education as well as in the postgraduate education. And it has been proven. We have lots and lots and lots of evidence that better researchers, they are better clinicians also, and that all these researchers, when the students, they read into the best evidence and enter into the best evidence practice, evidence-based practice, that all results in better health of the community. Now, if you look at the curriculum internationally, the global trend which is happening, so that we can connect ourselves as to what is happening with globally and what we are doing nationally, that will make more sense. So if you look at, I examined the curriculum, I have been examining this curriculum for the last 15 years or plus. Scientific approach to practice, patient care, ethics, research and scholarship, professionalism, patient safety, communication and collaboration. So all these in community-oriented practice, all the curriculums globally, they revolve around these 6 or 7 themes, okay? And if you look at scientific approach to medical practice, patient care and ethics, patient care again, evidence-based practice, research and scholarship, training for hands-on training for research, and then professionalism, patient safety against evidence is there that what to do for better patient safety. So a bulk of the teaching, it is based on research. Now, how do they do that? Research is embedded in the curriculum right from the undergraduate medical education to the postgraduate. Either it is embedded in the curriculum, and then there are instances where there are standalone courses and mandatory research projects, and I'll come to Pakistan in a moment. So evidence-based practice, this integrates the best research and clinical expertise and patient values for optimum care. Critical appraisal of scientific literature. Now, critical appraisal of scientific literature cannot come until and unless one has got a sound uh, foundation for research. Now, coming to the current status, if you look at the PMDC emphasizes that the core competencies, one of the core competencies that a graduate should have is that he should be a researcher. Okay, and the curriculum which PMDC has given the guidelines, for example, the recent revised edition of NUMS, that is National University of Medical Sciences, they have 100 hours, reserved for research in there. In most of the medical colleges in developing country, there are four things which are important, which are lacking, or because of that, the undergraduate curriculum is not flourishing that way. One is a lack of trained faculty for supervision of research projects, lack of mentoring, or no or inadequate reserved time for research. And research is not incentivized. There are no incentives for research. So these were some of the things which came out of the literature review as to what are the students' perception regarding undergraduate curriculum in developing countries. Now, if you look at the research in Pakistan, the barrier to research in Pakistan in most of our medical institutions, one is that the administrators, they are under pressure to accommodate the teaching hours in basic sciences and clinical rotation, okay? And that no protected or allocated time for research is given in the curriculum, lack of faculty interest, and lack of faculty trained in research methods. Paucity of funds is one of that, the reasons, but paucity of funds is not a big issue. But the first four, they are, a real educational barrier. So what are the steps to improve better learning and to inculcate research culture in our institutions? One is faculty development program, concentrating on research methods and also hands-on training for research. Promoting cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, and multi-institutional mechanism of support, building network. And long time back, 20 years ago, I wrote a paper in which promotion of North and South, and in terms of developing research culture and other getting from others' experiences. Anyway, the other point which is extremely important is, and that PMDC has emphasized regarding medical education, but not regarding research, that dedicated research units or department or research cell, whatever you may call them, that should be there in each of the medical institutions. And the reason for that is that since our faculty, they're not appropriately trained, and we do not expect everyone to be a very good biostatistician and everyone to be a very good epidemiologist. Therefore, the research unit will be having should be having the epidemiologist, biostatistician, and help for research analysis, and that is going to promote that. And also, the last point which I want to dedicate to emphasize is that to raise the standards for faculty promotion, because PMDC gives you the minimum PMDC requirements for published paper. We need to raise this standard, and this is easier done in private universities. And for example, AKU has a different level for assistant professor and associate professor and their promotions. So that is another thing which we need to look at. So in conclusion, which I'll say that training in research and medical education, they produce critical thinkers, lifelong self-directed learners, resulting in improved healthcare, which is based on best evidence practices. And institutions should strive for creating a research culture, and that no barrier is insurmountable. Even in resource constrained settings, barriers can be overcome. Thank you very much. And if there's any question, I'm available to answer the questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bazmi. A very detailed introduction of about how the research is being implemented at different places. We have questions coming up, and one question is, while everyone is, it is from Dr. Fawzia Amir. While everyone is stressing on doing research, we face a lot of problems in publishing our research. How can an effort be made? How can an institution help in this regard, in connection with your experience locally as well as internationally?
Please? I think that's a very that's a very fair question. Both internationally, my experience has been both in developed countries and developing countries, plus Pakistan. So a research cell is one which is, I think it is a must that every institution should have research cell, because there they have the expertise. I mean, the statisticians would be there, there would be epidemiologists would be there, and they will help the faculty in writing their proposal, and in helping them understand data analysis, give them courses for hands-on data analysis, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure what the person who has asked the question raised this point. This is a very valid point, and one of the way to do that is to create a research cell. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We totally agree, sir, with you regarding the having a research cell where the coordinated help can be provided to the researchers, upcoming researchers, as well as those who are already in this field. One question from our department, I would say, is that, how do you, owing to your vast experience nationally and internationally, how do the students take the research culture or the desire to do a research, taking it to its fulfillment? How do you see, is there any difference at the international and local level?
Well, you'll have, I would divide it in three ways. One is developed countries, that is UK, US, and Australia, Canada, and so on and so forth. So there the research culture is already developed. So I'll not talk much about that. Now, in the GCC country, for example, research is highly being emphasized, and I came back from there in 2013. From 2003 to 2017, I was there. So in that phase, in the last 2 years, the Saudi Medical Council, they had made it mandatory that the students, they produce a certificate from their institution that they have participated in a research project. Okay, so that then drove them to understand the importance of research. One. Secondly, that research should not be confined only to community medicine department, and that the only community medicine department should teach research, and that it is a mandatory project. That is not the correct. Yeah, they can take the lead in that, so they can take the lead in giving them courses in epidemiology and biostatistics and research methods, but that it should not be confined to community medicine. It should be cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and also inter-institutional. So some institutions, they have got more strength, so they can be supportive to other institutions, and that is the way how we can go ahead. So, and that there's no magical solution. So one has to think of innovative ways, and that all the institutions in Pakistan, they are at different paces of developing their own research cultures in their institutions. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir, that answers completely well. A question from our participant, Mariam, is, can you define the research culture in medical education? Does it relate to how medical education is imparted with regards to research, or does it mean how clinical research is accepted by the medical trainees?
Research, basically, if you define research, I mean, my simplest definition of research is it is a scientific organized method of inquiry. Now, a scientific organized method of inquiry can be in any field, even in the social field, in your personal life, in basic sciences, in preventive sciences, in clinical field, and in, you name it. Okay, so it is, one just cannot do without research in this era. And when I'm talking in this era, we entered into this era, 50 years back in medical education. But unfortunately, the developed countries, they're still lagging behind. And, I think that this is an era of technology, and then this webinar and seminar. So I think the next generation, they are going to take it further very quickly. And one more thing, I would like to say that, most of the institutions, not all, most of the institutions, they have electives. Okay, so electives can be in two parts. One is elective for in clinical practice or in basic sciences. The other elective should be elective in research, and they can go into institutions where they have got high level of research, either in Pakistan or in or abroad, so that they get connected, that how the world is going, and be exposed to the global trends. So this is my answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bazmi, for a very, very comprehensive talk, as well as answering two very relevant questions, which are for the students, which are meant for students as well as and for the faculty. Thank you for your time. And as soon as we get other questions, we will keep engaging you and asking you questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, our next presentation is by Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem. He's Professor of Community Medicine at Shifa College of Medicine. He's chairman of the research committee at the Shifa College of Medicine, also associate editor-in-chief of Journal of Shifa Tameer Millat University, our very own journal at Shifa. Then he was also the former associate editor-in-chief of International Journal of Health Sciences, which is present on the PubMed and Thomson Reuters. So over to Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem to talk about the research methodology at Shifa College of Medicine. So over to Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem. Sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Sajida, and very warm welcome to everybody who joined, and special thanks to VC and principal that they are there at this time of vacation. I'll focus mainly on research methodology in MBBS curriculum. That is, I'll focus on mainly Shifa experience and beyond what we are doing. No, Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University aims motivating and facilitating research at all levels, undergraduate level and postgraduate level. For this purpose, research facilities are established in university. We have a director of research in the university. In hospital, we have very huge setup, and in medical college, we have research. As far as I'm talking about MBBS curriculum in the beginning, we start research from MBBS first year as a longitudinal theme. In first year, we focus on very, very basic things. Our objectives are importance of evidence-based medicine, steps in research, basic terminologies of epidemiology, and different type of study design. And as we run it as longitudinal themes, these are translated in lectures and small group discussions in all the modules, as you can see. Because of scarcity of time, I'll not go into the detail of this. In second year, we go a bit advanced, and student has to interpret the concepts of epidemiology and research, how to search literature and write a review literature, then what are descriptive by statistics, and apprise research article as rational objectives and methodology. And in longitudinal theme, they are as form of lectures, small group discussion. They are integrated in all the modules starting. Uh, I'll not go in detail again because I have many other things to discuss. In third year, at the end, student has to write down a research proposal, a plan of the research. And that research proposal is submitted to IRB, Shifa Tameer, Millat University, for approval. They have to critique a research article. They'll prepare and present a e-poster. And in longitudinal themes in year 3, as you can see in all the modules, these activities are incorporated. But we have a rotation. There are 100 and 100 plus students in each class. These are divided in 4 major groups. They contain 25 students, and they make subgroups, that 5 students each group. And they come to us every Wednesday for 2 weeks for 2 hours. And they write down a research proposal. So at the end of the year, each class has to write 20 research proposals, which are submitted to IRB for approval. In 4th year, we have Community Health Sciences Clerkship, in which Family Medicine has 2 days and Community Medicine has 3 days. As far as research is concerned, they are trained on SPSS, manuscript writing, what are their different types, plagiarism, its type, what are software for that. They are given time for data collection because they have to submit a manuscript. And then they write draft manuscript, which is evaluated in the examination, and then they write down final manuscript. Besides a lot of, you can see, community activities, our students also participate in academic activities. This photograph of last year of Health Services Academy, where clerkship students, they went and they attend the annual health conference. Now we are facing some challenges, and this is important. Now Department of Community Medicine, that is separate from Family Medicine. Community Medicine will be up to year 3, 3rd year MBBS, and Family Medicine will be in form of clerkship in year 5. Now we'll be facing a problem, how students will collect data, how they'll write a manuscript, how they'll publish the manuscript. Authorities has taken a decision that in Family Medicine clerkship will be given 1 day in which they'll do all these activities. So this problem is being sorted out. Now Scholars Day is our permanent feature, this yearly activity from last 10 to 15 years, in which students of various medical colleges actively participate. This year, due to pandemic of COVID-19, this event was arranged online and it was very, very successful. Beside normal posters, e-poster competition is also there in almost all modules and blocks. As I was telling you, Scholars Day, this was online, and these are few pictures of that activity you can see. This is e-poster competition, and that was in a nutrition and metabolism block, and the students actively participated in that. Now we have a great initiative, that is Global Institute of Human Development. That is an NGO, non-profit NGO. We have collaboration agreement with this organization. As per this agreement, Global Institute of Human Development is a teaching department of Shifa Tameer Millat University from February 2020. This is MOU signing ceremony in which our worthy Vice Chancellor, our Dean, they were there, and Director, Dr. Usman was there, and they welcomed us in a very better way. In the very beginning, we are going to start with 10 certificate courses. And because for certificate courses, we need not permission from HEC or PMDC, they are identified. On first certificate course, systematic review and meta-analysis paperwork is complete. And we'll be, inshallah, starting in next month. But our ultimate objective is that we'll start Master in Research program, Master in Public Health and Research, and PhD in Public Health. And we'll start that after approval and permission from Pakistan Medical and Dental Council and Higher Education. Besides, our faculty will get the chances for grants. Similarly, students will also. And they can improve their qualification. They can get, as they are with the Liverpool University, they can improve their qualifications. Now, 3 years back, as my previous experience was there in Saudi Arabia, I started a journal, as Dr. Sajida was telling, International Journal of Health Sciences, which is on PubMed now, and Thomson Reuters ISI. We have started here 3 years back, Journal of Shifa Tameer, Millat University. There are 3 volumes, they are online and published, and student corner is there. A special issue on COVID-19 is in process, and we have submitted this journal to Pakistan Medical and Dental Council for their approval, and inshallah we are fulfilling all the criteria for the PMDC approval. This is on Crossref, and there's a very good website. If you feel like seeing their website, that is wonderful. Then faculty development activity, which is called Saturday Seminar, which is educational development seminar or Saturday Seminar, which is on last Saturday of every month. Presentations are made on selected topic, including research also. During pandemic of COVID-19, this activity was online. Now, outreach facility, we have very good setup at Nurpur Shah, where there is a PSC Primary Healthcare Center. In peri-urban setting, faculty get a chance and students get a chance to do their study over there. Decide postgraduate training is done in Shifa College and Shifa Tameer Millat University and Shifa International Hospital in clinical and basic disciplines in which students write their dissertation or 3 original articles that is a part of research. As far as clinical setup, research in clinical setting is concerned, our Dean, Professor Dr. Rahman, will inshallah tell you about that. Thank you very much. This is from my side, and your questions are more welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Zahid, for giving us a detailed view of what are the research and related activities at Shifa College of Medicine and at the Shifa Tameer Millat University. Our question from Q Sheikh is research, to Professor Zahid, is research led by students or by the faculty?
No. As I told you that each and every student in year 3, in group of 5, they have to write a research proposal, which is a plan for their research. This is mandatory, this is being evaluated. And year 4, during clerkship, they have to write down the manuscript. They are taught how to write. They are trained on SPSS, data collection, data entry, data analysis. And they write a draft manuscript, which is being evaluated in their final examination and clerkship examination. So that is student-led. And I'm a very interesting example. sometimes students are so motivated that in first year when they come and we motivate them about the research, students start writing. First year students, I do remember in the first year, they were convinced girls that they want to write something on breast cancer and they prepare a proposal. Now their study is complete and about to publish. Similarly, there is a student, Nismat, I think she's in final year. She has, I think, 10 or 11 articles, and her 5-6 articles are on PubMed Index Journal.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zaid. I would just like to add upon it, since we are a part of this teaching of research methodology here. Yes, it is a student-led, but definitely it is supervised by the faculty. So all projects that are carried out, research projects, so they have to be mentored by the faculty. And very important to highlight here with this on this forum is the continuously there is a mentor, there is a supervisor who is among the faculty, who is there to guide you and take you along all the way, starting from that. Our next talk is actually about the IRB from the Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal, so he will highlight more upon it. So very, very important, and this must be a good question by the students, I would say. Thank you very much, Professor Zahid, for your detailed view.
Dr. Bazmi and I, we were together in Qasim University, and our rooms are also connected there. Very nice to see you here. Thank you, Bazmi, for joining on my request. I'm light. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zahid. Now it's time to actually proceed to our next part of the webinar, and that is about our hearing from the expert panelists we have. So our first panelist is Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal. He is Vice Chancellor, Shifa Tameer, Millat University. He is a surgeon and medical educationist, as well as holds a vast experience in medical ethics. He has authored numerous books on the subject of medical ethics. He has been the chairman of the Consortium of Islamic Medical Colleges for 8 years and has been serving at key positions in different national and international professional bodies. He is also the editor-in-chief of Journal of Shifa Tameer, Millat University. Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal is going to actually he's going to give his views and he's going to share his experience with regard to importance of ethics in medical research. Then we have the role of religion, Islamic ethics, as well as the role of the IRB. Over to Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal, sir.
I think the ethics is essential competencies of every medics and rather every healthcare professional. And this competency should be developed over the period of time. We have a longitudinal module in MBBS program. It starts from first year and goes to the final year. And it is being not only made compulsory, but it is being assessed and it will appear in the transcripts of the medical graduates. Now, I will be talking in 2 or 3 minutes time on the role of IRB and ethical committees in research. And one of the important thing is that the importance of humanity. And I will be integrating the Islamic ideologies with my talk. As you all know, that is in Quran, in Surah Asra, it has been said, وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that the most honor creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the human being. So once you are conducting a research involving the human being, it is very important that there are few ethical boundaries for that. And there is a institutional review board in every institution, and in STMU, in Shifa College of Medicine, Shifa Tameer University, we have a very vibrant and a very well represented institutional review board and ethical committee. So the function of this institutional review board is to protect the interests of all those who are participants in any research protocol, program, or in clinical trial. The main purpose of IRB is the protection of and the safety and the well-being of the subjects. The members include usually in all RBs, their minimum number of required members are 5, but we have a very comprehensive, a large IRB and ethical committee in Shifa Tameer Millat University and Shifa International Hospital. We at least one member we take from the non-scientific and essentially one member from the scientific departments, and also the social, from the community and social worker are also included in that. These members have the qualities to evaluate the scientific and medical aspects and the ethics of the proposed trial and research project. This IRB basically, as I said, safeguard the interest of the participant. It reviews all the clinical trials which are being submitted to this ethical committee or review board, and at the same time they are continuously reviewing whatever is going on in research in the clinical side, in the basic side, as well as the with the international collaboration as well. And this all the informations which are being fed to the IRB are being critically analyzed, and our people are our members, they are well above the board. And here I want to add an ayah of Quran which says, it's from Surah Tawbah, which says that we should always remain upright in our dealings, particularly with the human beings. And as I mentioned, ayah is the kunu ma'as sadiqin. We should be always with the trustworthy and truthful people. So the procedure of this IRB is, once you have the protocol, research protocol, you need to fill the performance. None a single protocol or a single research project or a clinical trial can be conducted in this university or its teaching hospital without the approval of IRB. And so the first and the foremost thing for every researcher is to prepare a document for the IRB, and IRB has set up a critical performer for that, and every researcher has to fill this performer. First of all, fill the document and then submit it to the IRB. And then after the submission, it is being critically reviewed by the members depending upon the types of protocol. And then it is not only reviewed and either approved, or it is rejected, or it is sent back for modification. And sometimes there's major modifications, sometimes minor modifications are required to, and all this process is being done in a very transparent way. As you know, that the ethical reviews are of three major types. There's the exempt review, where there is a minimal human involvement or the human interventions, and then you have an expedite review and full review. And all these types of reviews are being conducted in a very, very systematic manners. Other than the review and the IRB functions, we also look into the ethics of our publications as well, and not only the ethics of clinical research or the basic research, but its implications in the publications as well. And therefore, I just want to share with you that there are different issues in which we have to look as journal. This is the duplicate publications, or the authorship and author of authorships, and there are ethical boundaries, who could be the author and who could not be the author. And then scientific misconduct, if occurs, particularly the plagiarism, that should be dealt with a very strong and motivated way. And then if there is a conflict of interest, they should be dealt. But just want to give you the types of plagiarisms which we need to avoid outside of plagiarism. Sometimes there is unwilling or accidental type of plagiarism. Then there could be a deliberate plagiarism, and sometimes the people are recycling their own ideas from one article to another article. This is called self-plagiarism. And some people, they just steal the texts or some ideas from the other texts, other people's work, and then they go through that and change their words, or sometimes they change the sentence, but the ideas are being replicated. So all these 4 types of plagiarism are strictly prohibited in all sort of scientific research and publications. Then it's about the plagiarism. There you will be surprised to know there is a direct ayah in Quran which says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْرَحُونَ بِمَا أُوتُوا وَيُحِبُّونَ أَن يَحْمَدُوا بِمَا لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّهُم بِمَا فَازُوا مِنَ الْعَذَابِ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. This again in Surah Asra, which says that whoever he doesn't do that, but he likes that he should be praised on the things which he has not done. He should be praised for the work which he has not actually done. It's very strongly condemned in Islamic teaching. Then the authorship, we have a different type of authorship. There are ghost authorship and other authorships in the scientific research. We need to avoid all these types of authorship in journal, and we should be knowing who could be the author, what are the qualifications of the author, and the co-authorship, what are the disciplines about the co-authorship. It's very important. And authorship order is also important. It depends upon the contribution, and they should be critically analyzed. And our IRB also looks into that, the authorship is properly ordered or not. And then there are different issues related to the authorship that should be dealt with. And one thing which I just want to share with you, the academic dishonesty, which alhamdulillah, we are trying our level best at all level to curb the academic dishonesty, and we are very strict on that. And there are several hadiths about that. One of the hadiths I quoted here, that those who cheat, they are not among us, they are not the Muslims. And that's my little bit brief about the ethics. If you have some questions, inshallah, we will be able to answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal, for giving us a very detailed talk about the role of IRB and the ethics, and also with regards to the authorship details, which is often very relevant to our students also, as well as the faculty, because a lot depends upon the authorship grading that is very pertinent nowadays. Sir, आपसे हमारा question जो होगा, the question to you is, sir, in near future, is it possible that associations of medical institutions of Islamic countries can collaborate with institutes of other Islamic countries?
Yes, it is possible. We have a consortium of the consortium of medical school in Islamic countries, and some of the even the Muslim minority countries, they also contribute in this. Like one of the institutions joined us from South Africa, so it's a Muslim minority country. We don't discriminate in that, but this is a very vibrant organization, which I am the founder president of this organization. It was basically established by 4 initial institutions, and now it has more than 70 institutions on its list. So they have different programs, they have research collaboration, they have collaboration on curriculum development and curriculum delivery, they have collaborations on they also exchange their curriculum contents, and they have a different level of collaboration among the different universities. So all the Pakistani institutions are and the international institutions are invited to join this institute. It's very easy, and go on the website and you can always fill the pro forma and be the member of that. And it doesn't have any joining fee as well, membership fee.
Right, sir. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for giving us very detailed account of the role of medical ethics and the IRB board. I would request all the participants, if you have any questions, please keep sending us through the chat box. So we will take up your question as the time passes by. In the meantime, we will move on to our next speaker. And our next speaker is Professor Dr. Atef Rahman. Welcome, sir, to joining us on this seminar. He holds a PhD from University of Manchester in child psychiatry. He is head of the Global Mental Health at Institute of Life and Human Health Sciences, University of Liverpool, UK. He has spearheaded the Institute's program in global mental health with multiple international projects in the areas of perinatal, infant, child, and adolescent mental health, largely in low and middle income countries, very relevant to our population. He is also a WHO expert advisor on the development of regional policy for mental health in Eastern Mediterranean region, and also member of WHO's Mental Health Guidelines Development Group. As Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem mentioned about the GIHT, the collaboration of Shifa with it, and it is now our part of, they are part of our faculty also. The 10 courses that Professor Dr. Zahid Naeem mentioned about Global Institute of Human Development. He's also a focal member of that organization. So as such, he's part of the Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University family. He has done numerous successful programs, partnership programs he has carried out. So we would request Professor Dr. Atef Rahman to please highlight on how are these successful partnerships or the linkages established and carried out, which can have an impact on the public health. So over to Professor Dr. Atef Rahman.
Sorry, I'm muted.
We can hear you, Dr. Atef.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sajida, and thank you very much to my colleagues and students for inviting me to this wonderful initiative. And I am delighted to see the university making efforts to promote a research culture in Pakistan, something that's direly needed. And I'm delighted that my university here in Liverpool in the United Kingdom, where I'm sitting right now, is collaborating with Shifa Tameer-e-Millat University. We see Shifa University as one of the leaders, the future potential leaders of a lot of good things, and we are delighted to be collaborating with them. And as Dr. Sajida introduced me, that I lead the Global Mental Health Group in my university, which essentially means that we develop global partnerships to conduct international collaborative research. And I'll talk a little bit about my own experiences. I'll talk for about 4 or 5 minutes, and I'll be delighted to take questions afterwards. But before I talk about partnerships, I'll just say a few words about fostering a research culture, especially amongst the medical community and medical students. And what I'll say is that from my perspective as a university academic, I see it as a two-pronged approach. There are two aspects to it. One is bottom-up and the other is top-down. And I'll explain what I mean by bottom-up and top-down. So what I mean by bottom-up is that students of a university need to develop the right sort of curiosity and mindset to start thinking independently from a very early stage of their education and begin to raise questions rather than just be passive recipients of information. You know, that I see as a huge duty of academics and researchers to, you know, just to stimulate that part of the brain in their students, which is curious and which questions. And I think that is a process, and I'm delighted Dr. Zahid in his presentation mentioned all the wonderful initiatives that Shifa takes to foster this in students. And these are really the structural things that need But in terms of process, it's very important for teachers like myself and all the other teachers represented here to encourage that mindset. And that mindset is fostered not just through teachers, but also through curricula that are research driven. So rather than conventional courses, you have courses that reflect research as it is practiced contemporarily, and you implement and integrate those ideas into the sort of teaching programs. And that is a very exciting aspect of my work, and I'll talk a little bit about it also. To give a concrete example of how we fostered these sort of mindsets very early on, when I was visiting faculty, and I was educated at the Rawalpindi Medical College, and which is now a university. So in my initial years when I was I still am a visiting faculty there. We used to conduct these one-day workshops with medical students, which were titled Thinking Like a Researcher. So what essentially those workshops did was to collect a group of students who are interested in research, are trying to develop their projects. We sat them down in one room and asked them to think about a research question, something that stemmed from their own experiences, from their own clinical experience, or just from their own experience of interacting with the world or with the health sciences. And then we would chisel that question into a testable hypothesis, and we would go through the process of all the steps that were needed to think about that question in a scientific way, in a way that could lead on to something that they could work on. This was not very prescriptive, and we were not expecting any outputs from it. This was just a fun sort of activity which students did with us. And you will be surprised that some of my best researchers that I have worked with actually came through that process. And one particularly that Dr. Zahid mentioned, Dr. Sayyid Usman Amdani, whom I work with now, who's the director of the Global Institute of Human Development, was actually found in this way. And so that's one aspect of how we can try and promote this culture of curiosity within our students. Now, that's what I meant by bottom-up approach. So you start from the bottom, and that wonderful critical mass of brain power will gradually go to the top. The second is top-bottom, which means that research needs to be given equal status to teaching in universities. So these are the two essential functions of a university, teaching and research. Now, in most universities in Pakistan, teaching is given proportionately a greater, teaching and training is given a proportionately greater emphasis. And our Higher Education Commission is also sort of swayed in that direction. But, and all universities across the world, and even in UK, they struggle with creating a balance between people who do research and people who teach. And the best universities are able to marry the two together. And so that is what we should be aspiring to in our universities as well. So when I was interviewed for my job as the chair of child psychiatry at the University of Liverpool, I was asked, this was 12 years ago, I was asked, how will you make your research impactful? And my answer was that I would do so by making partnerships with strong institutions in low and middle income countries. And then those partnerships would then work together on big problems. Something that I will not be able to do if I just sit in my corner in Liverpool and look at the small picture and try to work on the small issues. So that's what got me the job, actually. And then I was able to actually make some very good partnerships with multiple institutions across the world. But the one that I am most proud of and has been the most productive in these 12 years is my partnership with the Human Development Research Foundation and its educational offshoot, the Global Institute of Human Development. And so what happens is that my junior faculty and students in Liverpool collaborate on projects with this strong local entity in Pakistan. And they build their capacity of learning what the issues are in low and middle income countries and how we can harness our brains together to try and solve those problems. So my faculty here would have no clue of how to approach things from a global perspective if it weren't for the Human Development Research Foundation and GIHT. And what the GIHT get in return is perhaps some expertise that might be missing in Pakistan. So what it becomes is a win-win situation. So my students then here develop strong ties and links with students in the Global Institute, and then they work together and become very powerful in the way that they can get grants and write papers. So this is the sort of win-win formula that makes for successful partnerships. And this is what I would propose. And Dr. Zahid alluded to this partnership, and I am so delighted to be a part of it. And I am honored and very proud to be a visiting faculty member of the Global Institute of Human Development and the Institute of Population Health, which has been established at Shifa Tameer. It's very early days, and with COVID, things are a little slow, but we have very high ambitions, and we hope that this three-way partnership will actually put into practice the things that I mentioned in terms of developing a research-driven curriculum. And Dr. Zahid mentioned our plans to develop these certificate programs and our plans to develop these master's degrees in very, very applied research subjects, so that the research that we do trickles down to the students and they learn what we have learned over the many years, and they can then apply and build even stronger programs and projects. So I think that that is all I will say, and I will be delighted to have any questions from students or from the faculty. And I also look forward in the coming years to working with the Shifa Tameer Millat University and the Global Institute of Human Development to really put us on the map for international research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Atef, sharing your very experience, and especially very, very relevant with regards to beginning from the work at the level of the medical colleges and now going on to the postgraduate level. Parts of the world. So one of the questions from the audience is a very, very relevant question, is that, like, if we do a very good research and it fulfills the criteria of being a good research and good writing in that context, so shall we get it published in an international journal or a local journal? The second part linked to that question is that if it is published in a local journal because it is related to the local context and it's a good research, if it is not published here in then how will our journals improve our standard, and how would their impact factor, how are they going to achieve their impact factor, and in a way that is going to increase their worth? So what should be done in this regard? Getting it published.
Yeah. That's a very, very interesting question. So where do you publish your research? I would say that publish your research where it gets the most access to the most number of academics. So I would suggest open access journals. The world of publishing is increasingly moving towards these open access platforms. In fact, the Wellcome Trust, which is the largest funder of research in the world, is planning to develop a platform which is open access and where research can be published very quickly, and it can be accessed by almost anyone. So open access is important, and you can get waivers, they charge a publication fee, but if you are working in a developing country, you can get waivers. So my idea is that that should be done. Now, how do then local journals get that stature that is needed, obviously, to then become big journals, unless people publish in those journals? So, yeah, I don't have any immediate answer to that question. How do you, I mean, I guess one way is to, this is for the Higher Education Commission and for university vice chancellors, to think about, rather than having a medical journal for every university, every department. I know that Rawalpindi Medical University has its own journal, Shifa has its own journal. Whether one big umbrella journal could come out and which could also pool some resources, get some resources from the Higher Education Commission, try and get linked to some big publishing houses, and then attract good high standard papers from these feeder institutions. And that way then it takes a couple of years for journals to be, get their registration, the number that, and then another few years to start getting an impact factor. But my hunch is that in Pakistan, the population, the number of institutions we have, and the number of small journals, every psychiatric society, every society has a journal, to pool those, and that's just a suggestion for our higher authorities to maybe see if that's possible.
Okay, thank you very much for giving a detailed answering this, elaborating this, and giving us thought-provoking insight into it, how it can be improved. Thank you very much, Dr. Atef. As soon as we are going to get more questions, we will just get back to you in a moment. So now it's time to move on to our next panelist, who is Dr. Farooq Azam Rathore. He is consultant and head of department of rehabilitation medicine at PNS Shifa Hospital, Karachi. He is also assistant professor at Bahria University Medical and Dental College in Karachi. He specializes in the rehabilitation medicine. So he's the administrator of the only online rehabilitation forum in Pakistan, which is called the Rehab Pakistan in South Asia, SARC Rehab. And he's providing mentoring in research and medical writing to a large number of students. He has a YouTube channel also and a large number of followers. And he has received the Young Investigator Award at the 5th Annual Society of Istanbul in Turkey in 2009. Ibn Sina Silver Medal for Outstanding Research, Author 8 Mentor of the Year Award 2014, and more. Inside country, he has won the Research Productivity Award by the Pakistan Council for Science and Technology, Islamabad, Pakistan, consecutive of the people with regards to research in the medical profession, but also health related industry. Also, he's actively engaged in training them through different workshops also. So he's going to talk about, because he deals with a large number of postgraduate trainees also. So I would now request Dr. Farooq Azam Rathore to please to give his talk regarding share his views regarding the experiences with regards to research at the postgraduate level, its challenges and solutions. Thank you for joining us. Over to Dr. Farooq Rathore.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sajida. Can you see my slides clearly?
Yes, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I'll try to be as quick and to the point as possible. I have just started my timer. 5 minutes is the limit. So the sources for this particular presentation are mainly 3. So I focused on the local national literature. I do a lot of training workshops. I have conducted around 90 workshops on research, writing, ethics, communication skills all around Pakistan and abroad as well. In addition, I have been doing this formal mentoring through an author aid, which is a global platform, for the last 10 years. So obviously, when I do mentoring, when I do training workshops, I get a lot of feedback from my colleagues who tell me what are the challenges that they are facing while they do research. And I'm going to talk about those. Many good points have already been covered by the worthy panelists and the speakers. So I'll only try to focus on two main things and the possible solutions that we can have. The first is I would like to highlight is lack of support and guidance. So everyone was talking about the research culture. So the research culture cannot generate in a environment where you do not have a proper research support. And the ground reality is, unfortunately, in Pakistan, there are 169 medical colleges as of today, but very few institutes value and support research on ground. If you want to have a proof, just simply see this ranking by the Higher Education Commission, which was published back in year 2015. Aga Khan University has been consistently rated as one of the most productive medical universities in Pakistan. If you simply go at number 13, you would see the productivity of the university at number 13 is almost 1/3 the research productivity of Aga Khan. And if you go beyond that, probably the last 50 universities, their combined impact is less than the impact of what Aga Khan is making in the world today. So you need to understand that you cannot have a research culture if your institute is not supporting that, number one. The second issue that has been highlighted many times by resident, colleagues, trainees, and also in the research published in Pakistan is the issue with supervisors. It is something that is not mostly talked about, but it is something that can have a lot of negative impact on the research culture in Pakistan. So what are the issues? Number one, many supervisors have a very busy schedule. They are mostly busy in attending their patients, and they cannot give adequate time to their resident or trainees or students. Unfortunately, as someone already mentioned, the driving factor for most of the faculty and supervisors to engage in research is not the altruistic research itself. It is actually to strengthen their CV and get the promotion as per the criteria of PMDC and HEC as soon as possible. And the most important point that we need to understand, highlight, and probably address is a lack of research skills with the supervisors as well. So at least in case of in CPSP supervisor, all you need to do is you do 4 workshops, and then you do your FCPS 4 workshops, and then you are provided with a certificate of being a supervisor. Nobody actually gauges that are you really interested, and can you actually mentor and provide training support to your trainee or not. Now the question arises, why do you need a mentor or supervisor? You need them because, if I have seen further, it is by standing upon the shoulder of giants. We all need these kind of supporters, mentors, and giants in our personal and professional life. And having a good, honest mentor who can provide you support and direction can make a lot of difference in your research careers. Now the problem is, if you don't get a mentor in your own institute, in your own organization, you don't have to worry. Please make the best use of the online resources available. Go online and explore this website, author-a.info. I myself started as a mentee, as a student on this website 10 years back, and now I'm mentoring others. You can go and explore this website. It's free of cost. It's a global network of 20,000 researchers, including many doctors, physicians, and healthcare providers. Simply go and explore this website. And a good news for all of you who are attending this session, Author is going to start their next massive online open access course on research writing on 8th of September. There is still time. Please enroll in that course and learn from global experts how to write and publish your research in a high impact biomedical journal. The other challenge that resident and postgraduate trainees have identified is lack of appropriate knowledge, training, and skills in research methodology. For example, a research was done co-authored by Dr. Sajida in Islamabad, in which they identified that less than 20% of the postgraduate resident had a good knowledge of epidemiology. So you can't do good research if you don't have a good grasp on biostatistics and epidemiology. Then there's challenge of topic selection. How should I select my topic? Unfortunately, the consultants or the supervisors don't have time. They don't give much direction, and the people and the students are confused. If they start doing work, they have issues with literature search skills and accessing the full text of the article that they download or they want to download. Even if they cover all these challenges, the major issue comes with writing skills. Unfortunately or fortunately, we are not English speaking people. English is our second language, and we have to learn how to converse and write in English. And English is the global language of science. You have to publish in English language. And even if you do good research, if you cannot convert that research into good writing, good English, unfortunately, it won't be published. And this is a very major issue right now in Pakistan, that unfortunately, because of these challenges, not only faculty, but residents are also engaging in these things. They pay for their synopsis, they pay for their thesis, they pay for their articles. They get their degrees and they become faculty members. A person who comes to a position with corrupt practices cannot impart honest training to his or her trainees. That's for sure. And Professor Iqbal gave you a couple of Quranic hadiths and ayats as well. But the point is, there's one way of just complaining. And then there's another way of looking at the glass as half full. So if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. So if you are really interested, even if your supervisor or your seniors don't support you, there are multiple opportunities available online that you can explore free of cost and enhance your own learning and training in research and writing. For example, Coursera. For example, edX. These are part of the massive online open access courses, and these are available free of cost. Hundreds of courses on research, writing, biostatistics, epidemiology, public health are available for everyone to enroll and make best use of. If you want to know some ideas about research, if you want to identify the research gaps, please go online on clinicaltrials.gov. More than 250,000 research proposals and titles are registered on that website. If you want to learn how to do good literature search, please go online and explore the National Library of Medicine or the MESH database tutorials. So MESH is Medical Subject Heading Database, and these tutorials are available free of cost for everyone. If you want full text, go online on Sci-Hub. Now, there are some controversies that whether it is legal or illegal or that copyright issue, but the issue is that as a researcher, I cannot pay $60 for every article that I want to read. So I have to go to some website, and Sci-Hub is the lifesaver. It is the world's largest database having more than 70 million articles, including many biomedical articles. There's a 95% chance that whatever article you're looking for, you are going to get on Sci-Hub. And if you're really interested in improving your skills in English writing, you can always go on the this Purdue Online Writing Lab. It's a fantastic lab. Online skills are imparted through tutorials, videos, and exercises. So options are available. It all depends on you whether you're really interested in improving your skills or not. So the take-home message would be, number one, stop complaining and start focusing on solutions. Number two, ask for help from your seniors, from your peers, and from your juniors. My mentor and my supporter and my teacher in biostatistics is actually my junior student, because his understanding of biostatistics is much better than mine. And I have no issues in asking him for help whenever I need help in biostatistics. Self-development is the key to develop professionally and personally in the 21st century. You have to take control of your own learning. And you can use all the things that I just shared with you. So as they say, do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work whatever tools you may have at your command. And better tools will be found as you go along. So don't wait for tomorrow. Start today, start exploring, learn and share, and hopefully you'll do well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farooq Azam Rathore, for a very composite presentation in which we talked about the real challenges that are faced and focusing primarily on the solutions, which is actually the gateway for doing research. And very rightly said that focus on solutions and the self-development. So this is the time, and especially with regards to, since we are also on this webinar in times when it is the time of pandemic and partial lockdown is already around. So in these times, the self-development, self-motivation and online teaching and everything, curriculum development has taken place. So that provokes that obviously research can be carried out, and with so many solutions that you have offered. Thank you so much for sharing so many sites which are very beneficial for students, for faculty, for each one of us. So aapse, Dr. Farooq Azam, because you have plenty of experience in this. So our question to you is from one of the audience, our faculty member, is that like what is the submitting your article and getting it published is quite long in almost every journal. So it takes a huge time before the article gets published. So number one, in your expert opinion, what do you think? How can that time be minimized? Suggested, what would be your suggestions? And secondly, with that, many a times, like this is the time for corona studies on related to COVID-19. So if they get published after 6 months, probably they will not have any importance at that time in time. So such studies lose their, their reading worth is actually minimized. So in order to minimize the processing time for getting an article published, what would be your suggestions? Because Shifa is also on its way to having it's already issuing its journal. So this will also help us also.
Okay, thank you for this question. Very pertinent question. So I would give you a couple of ideas based on my own experience. First of all, at least for most of the international journals, they clearly tell you the timelines in which they usually review the article and get to a decision. So for example, if a journal clearly mentions that their turnaround time is 6 months to 8 months, so I'm sorry, but I mean, just requesting them might not make any sense, and they are still going to do their job or their peer review in 6 to 8 months, number one. So you probably go to good journals who do this peer review in let's say in 6 weeks time or in less than 2 months time. That's the first thing. So you read the instruction to authors. That's the first thing. Second could be that there are many journals that offer a fast track publication. So just one example, Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences, for an extra 20,000 rupees, they offer this fast track publication in which they would definitely review and give you a definite answer to your article submission within 4 weeks time. So if you have a little bit extra amount of money and little amount of time, you might want to explore that kind of option. But the third and the most important, which I personally feel, is your article should be as good as possible, as perfect as possible. So spend some time in pre-planning and creating a good article so that it does not go through a long peer review process and multiple rounds of review, and that might actually save you a lot of time. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farooq, for your giving us. Thank you, Dr. Farooq, for giving very good suggestions in this context, and for the new writers, and also for anyone who would like to get it published. So now it's time. Thank you for your time, and Dr. Farooq, let me thank him specially that he has joined us from Karachi. And Karachi is in a situation right now where internet connections were a lot of problem, and we are grateful. Alhamdulillah, this went really well, and you joined us, and you could present your slides also. Very, very useful for us. Thank you very much, and stay safe in Karachi. And now it's time to move on to our next panelist. And the next panelist speaker is our own Professor Dr. Mohammed Amir. He is Dean Faculty of Health Sciences at Shifa Tameer Millat University, Principal of Shifa College of Medicine. He's a surgeon, and he's especially relevant to today's topic as he is the leading investigator of the international clinical trials POISE 1, 2, and 3. He's a certified ATLS instructor also. So Professor Dr. Mohammed Amir is going to shed some light on the clinical trials. So over to sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sajida. We are already gone through the webinar and already overspent some time. Much has been said about clinical trials as well, and I would just like to add one thing. I mean, one thing we are doing over here in our Shifa International Hospital, our teaching hospital, under the auspices of Shifa Tameer University, that we are conducting many clinical trials. We are part of collaborative, you see, research in terms of POISE 3 and COP-AF with the Public Health Research Institute of Canada. That is one point, but there is another point which I want to highlight in the context of the webinar. As Major General Professor Amir Ikram said, that nowadays in Pakistan, if you really want to conduct a good clinical trial, your center, number one, has to be recognized by Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, DRAP, as a clinical trial unit. And you have to have a clinical research office which has to be duly licensed and certified by TRAP. So these are the two things which are mandatory, and most of the institutions, at least I would say, they're not aware of that. Somehow this information which has to be passed on to every institution in Pakistan is missing. So many a time when we start up with a research, we come to know that for a good clinical trial to be conducted in an institution, these are the prerequisites which are required. So IRB of the local institute is one thing which Professor Muhammad Iqbal Khan has very elaborately mentioned about that. Another thing is National Bioethics Institute of Pakistan Bioethics Committee. The study has to be you can say approved on ethical grounds by that National Bioethics Committee as well. And after that, as I said, it has to be licensed by the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. Alhamdulillah, after a lot of hard work and a lot of time was spent, our institute, Shifa International Hospital, was finally given the license as a clinical trial unit and as a clinical research office of Shifa Tameer Millat University to conduct clinical trial. So that's one information which I wanted to highlight for all the institutions of Pakistan. Second, as you said, for our clinical trials, one is your local research. We are conducting a lot of clinical trials in our institution as part of postgraduate training programs. So apart from dissertation, which are required for fellowships, we are promoting in our postgraduates to go for the publications, to go for the research, rather than a dissertation, go for the clinical trials. And at present, there are more than 10 trials in our surgical department, and similarly many trials are being conducted in other specialties as well. And we are trying to trickle it down to the undergraduate level as well. As was mentioned, this is a very important research going on as POISE 3. We are part of the international group on 10,000 patients. Khan is also partnering with us. In this collaborative effort, apart from us as a major investigator, the students of our fourth and final year, they are also participating in terms of data collection, in terms of patient recruitment and selection. So they are also learning all the ABCs and the whole conduct of an international study in our institution. So that's the way forward which we are looking for. As Professor Zahid mentioned, that research has to be part of our medical curriculum, and he mentioned the specifics of the delivery of that research in our curriculum. So our students are also geared for that. So apart from surveys, apart from the basic science research, they're also conducting the clinical trials with us as well. So I'll not take any further from there. And I think as we are to the closing of this webinar, so hand it over to Dr. Sajida.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Amir, for highlighting on the subject of the clinical trials and how students can actually be a part of it, and how already in the Shifa culture into this. So all our these speakers for joining us today and giving us very, very informative talk here, and very much giving us insight into this subject, and actually paving us the way for moving forward in the direction of promoting the research culture in the medical education. So now it's time to request Professor Dr. Amir to give his concluding remarks, followed by dua, so that we can close up. Over to sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sajida. And it's my profound honor to thank all the keynote speakers, all the panelists, and all the participants and organizers of this webinar. And all of us and all of them have made it possible to make this webinar quite engaging as it appears. Even to the end of it, we are almost 2 hours since we started. So I'll begin by thanking Professor Samin Siddiqui. It was really a very nice talk by him about research culture at Khan, as well as his global perspective as well. And Major General Professor Amir Ikram, mentioned about the opportunities and the way forward NIH has found in Pakistan in terms of medical research. And that's what he mentioned, and I elaborated. That's clinical research offices and CTUs have to be recognized and registered with a DRAP. And thank you very much, sir. Professor Noman Bazni, you see, he mentioned about research in medical education, and that was quite engaging and gave us a lot of insight into the medical research. Professor Zahid Naeem was quite specific about the role of or the delivery of research as part of curriculum, starting from first year to final year. And that's one thing which Shifa is, doing it. And our idea was to just share with the rest of the national and international community that what we are doing, and there may be many better ways of doing it, and we are always open to get up any idea and incorporate into our own curriculum. And it's also my honor to thank all the panelists and Professor Atef Rahman. And he mentioned again the quite specifics about conducting a research, about writing a grant proposal. And that's also, giving us an idea to move forward, how to do something which has an impact. This word has to be kept in mind, and that is the take-home message. And Professor Farooq Azam Rathore, as you see, and as you just heard, that he mentioned about very good sites as well as very good practical solutions to finding and to overcome the obstacles in research whenever one finds about you can say encounters while conducting a research. So he mentioned very clearly that don't complain, try to pick up solutions for that. That's one thing which is very important. So our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mohammed Iqbal Khan, he talked about a very important aspect of research, that is ethics and being humane, and to cater for the other human beings, not as subjects or as something you are entering as data, but as human beings. And that's what's a very, very important aspect of conducting a medical research, or any research for that matter, when it involves human beings or when it involves the biological creatures on Earth. And that's also very important. And last but not the least, I'll thank all the organizers and the moderator, who herself is a very good researcher, Dr. Sajida. She is also a mentor. She is also, a reviewer of so many articles. She has been on the panel of CPSP, and she has been overseeing the research proposal by thousands of, the postgraduates of Pakistan. And she has been a very good resource person for all of us in the institution. And I would thank her greatly. And again, the organizers are, the backup personnel whom we had on this weekend, Dr. Waqas Rabani, I'm especially thankful to you, Dr. Fahad Mistania, and there are many other names to mention. And thank you very much, and thanks all. Before I offer the dua, I would just say the last word. Out of these 2 hours, they are not wasted by any means. It has been quite engaging. And if we take home this message that research should not be considered a matter of research only, as our panelists and speakers mentioned. So what I gathered, the research has to be ethical, it has to be humane, and it has to be impactful. So if we do a research which doesn't bring a change finally, even a very small change might matter in the long run. So that's the last thing which I would like to end. And the dua which we always offer from our platform here also mentions all about these things. That is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Wal Asr, Innal Insana Lafi Khusr, Illa Alladhina Amanu Wa Amilus Salihati, Wa Tawasaw Bil Haqq, Wa Tawasaw Bis Sabr. So we have to be truthful, and we have to be patient, and we have to be advising each other. That's what all of you and all of us have done today. Thank you very much from Shifa College of Medicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Amir, Professor Dr. Mohammed Iqbal, Vice Chancellor, Shifa Tameer, Millat University, all our worthy speakers. and panelists that who have gathered here, and they gave us very much, the good time they have contributed and the discussion that was generated on that. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to make one announcement for all our participants that this is a CME activity. So you will all be sent out a form to fill it up and on your email addresses. And following this, once you submit the feedback on that, then only then you will be awarded the CME certificate. So kindly please do fill those forms and do send us back so that we can send you the online certificates of participation in this. Thank you very much, all of you. God bless you all. Allah Hafiz.